She collapsed at the iron gates of the obsidian citadel just before dawn, her body striking the stone like something already dead. Rain mixed with blood on the cold ground as guards drew their weapons, recoiling from the stench of corrupted magic clinging to her skin. To them, she was nothing more than a homeless human girl who had wandered too close to vampire territory, an offense punishable by death. But when the Vampire King stepped forward, everything stopped. King Alaric Nightborn had ruled the vampire world for over 6 centuries. Untouchable. Feared by both humans and monsters alike. He had ordered executions without blinking, ended wars with a single command, and never allowed emotion to interfere with law. Yet the moment his silver eyes fell on the girl trembling at his feet, something inside him fractured. Not because she begged, not because she cried, but because of the bite mark burning on her neck. It wasn't clean. It wasn't controlled. Black veins spread from it like poison, pulsing with unnatural rhythm. The mark carried an ancient pattern, 3 curved scars carved deliberately into flesh. A signature Alaric had not seen in over a century. The signature of his brother. The court demanded her execution immediately. An unauthorized turning. A human infected with forbidden blood. By law, she should not live another minute. Even the guards looked at her with disgust, whispering that she was cursed, dangerous, disposable. She lifted her head just enough to meet the king's gaze. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "End it before I lose myself." Her name was Alara. Once a university student. Once kind. Once invisible. Now homeless after being fired unjustly, betrayed by family, and discarded by a city that never noticed her pain. The vampire who attacked her had found her sleeping behind a closed library, too weak to fight back, too tired to scream. As pain ripped through her veins, Alara expected the king to strike her down. Instead he knelt. Gasps echoed through the citadel. Alaric placed a gloved hand near her neck, feeling the corrupted magic twisting inside her blood. His jaw tightened, not with rage toward her, but toward the past he thought he had buried. His brother was supposed to be dead. Executed for crimes against both vampires and humans. Reduced to ash. Yet this bite proved the truth. Alara wasn't a monster. She was a message. A warning. And suddenly, the king who had been ready to kill her made a decision that would shake both worlds. "You will not die today," Alaric said, his voice carrying absolute authority. "You are under my protection now." And somewhere deep within Alara's breaking heart, hope sparked for the first time in years. Even as darkness closed in. The moment King Alaric declared Alara protected, the entire obsidian citadel turned against her. Nobles in embroidered cloaks whispered like blades sliding from sheaths. Guards tightened their grip on silver weapons. Even the air felt hostile, thick with ancient laws and hungry suspicion. A homeless human girl with corrupted blood wasn't a guest. She was a threat. And threats were usually ended quietly before they could grow. But Alaric didn't flinch. He lifted Alara into his arms as if she weighed nothing, carrying her through hallways carved from black stone and history. Torchlight painted his face in sharp shadows, making him look less like a king and more like a judgment sent from darkness itself. Alara drifted in and out of awareness, her body burning, her skin cold, her heart beating too fast, like it was trying to escape her ribs. In the brief moment she could focus, she saw murals of vampire wars, treaties signed in blood, and portraits of rulers who never smiled. She wondered which of them would have spared her. She wondered why Alaric did. The chamber they placed her in was not gentle. It was beautiful, yes. Midnight velvet curtains, a bed carved from blackwood, walls inscribed with protective runes, but it was still a cage. The door sealed with spells. The windows barred with iron and warded glass. The kind of room meant for dangerous things, not broken girls. Alara tried to sit up. Pain ripped through her like fire threaded with ice. Black veins spread farther from the bite, crawling toward her collarbone, pulsing as if something inside her was learning her name. Her nails sharpened into points. Her senses sharpened into knives. Every heartbeat carried 2 sounds now, hers, and something else, faint but present, like a second rhythm hiding beneath her skin. And then the hunger came. Not hunger for food. Hunger for warmth, for life, for blood. She clamped a hand over her mouth as a low, animal sound tried to escape her throat. Terror flooded her eyes. She wasn't just changing, she was being dragged. King Alaric entered without warning, moving like a shadow given a crown. Behind him came Lady Seraphine, his oldest advisor, pale as moonstone, eyes ancient and unreadable. Seraphine's gaze swept Alara with clinical precision, not cruel but cold in the way a surgeon is cold. "This is not a natural turning," Seraphine said quietly. Alaric's jaw tightened. Explain. Seraphine stepped closer, careful not to touch the bite. The runes around Alara's bed flickered as if reacting to the corruption in her blood. The bite carries blood sorcery. Old binding craft. Forbidden for a reason. Alara swallowed, her throat burning. Binding? Seraphine's eyes softened only slightly, just enough to be frightening. It means the vampire who bit you may be able to pull on your mind like a chain. To call you. To command you. Alara's breath cracked. No. I didn't agree to. I know, Seraphine interrupted, and for the first time her voice carried something almost like pity. That's what makes it monstrous. Alaric's gaze locked on Alara's face, searching. What do you remember? Alara fought through the fog and forced the memory into words. I was near the old museum. I only went there because it was warm. Security chased me out once, but I found a corner outside the archive entrance. I fell asleep. Her fingers trembled. Then I woke up and he was there, silver hair, cold eyes. He smiled like he already owned me. Alaric went still. Alara noticed it, the smallest break in the king's control, the way his hand curled as if resisting the urge to crush something. He said, she whispered, he said your peace was a lie. That you made vampires weak by treating humans like equals. He called you a king of chains. Seraphine exchanged a sharp look with Alaric. The king's voice came out lower. Deadlier. Did he say his name? Alara hesitated, then shook her head. No. But he kept speaking as if he knew you. Like he wanted me to repeat his words to you. Because I was the letter, Alara realized. The message written in blood. Suddenly the room tilted. Her vision blurred. The black veins pulsed violently and heat flooded her skull. A voice, cold, amused, slithered into her thoughts. Look at you, hiding behind my brother's walls. Alara's eyes snapped wide. The voice wasn't hers. It wasn't even inside her ears, it was inside her mind, pressing against her thoughts like a hand against glass. She screamed. Guards rushed forward, but Alaric moved faster, gripping Alara's shoulders to keep her from thrashing. Her body arched, mouth open in a silent cry as the corruption flared like ink in water. Her eyes flickered gold, then darker, then gold again. And in that moment, Alara's lips parted and a different voice spilled out. Smooth, mocking, ancient. Hello, Alaric, it said through her mouth. Did you miss me? Alaric's entire presence turned lethal. Even Seraphine stepped back. Alara tried to fight it. She tried to close her mouth, tried to pull away, tried to scream her own name back into control, but her body betrayed her like it belonged to someone else now. The voice continued, using her throat like a throne. You always loved rules, brother. Treaties. Mercy. The soft laugh. Tell me, how many humans have thanked you for it? How many would spare you if they could burn you in sunlight? Alaric's eyes blazed silver. Marcus. The name struck the room like thunder. Alara felt the king's grip tighten, not on her but on his restraint. Seraphine's face hardened with confirmation. It really is him. Alara's chest rose and fell in frantic breaths as the voice inside her savored their fear. Of course it's me, Marcus purred. And I've brought you a gift. A girl the world threw away, now carrying power she never asked for. The voice dropped, turning sharp. If you try to cleanse her, I'll tear her mind apart. If you kill her, you lose the key. So tell me, King of Peace, what will you sacrifice to protect your precious treaty now? Alara's body convulsed. The voice vanished like smoke. She collapsed against Alaric, sobbing, shaking, horrified. I didn't want that, I swear. I know, Alaric said. 2 words. But they were different from anyone's kindness Alara had ever heard. Not sweet. Not performative. Not pity. A vow. He turned to his guards, his voice cutting steel. Seal every gate. Double the wards. Summon the Night Council. Seraphine's eyes narrowed. If Marcus can speak through her, he can possibly see through her too. Alara's tears froze. He can see. Alaric looked down at her and for the first time, his expression wasn't cold. It was furious, not at her but for her. Like the idea of someone using her life as a weapon offended something deeply buried in him. Then we make sure, Alaric said quietly, that what he sees terrifies him. Alara swallowed, trembling. Why are you doing this? The king's gaze held hers, sharp and steady. Because you didn't deserve what happened to you. His voice lowered. And because my brother made one mistake. Alara's breath caught. What mistake? Alaric's eyes flashed like moonlight on a blade. He touched someone under my protection. Not from pain, but from memory. The dream dragged her back into a life she had tried to forget. Cold streets. Closed doors. Faces that looked through her instead of at her. The night she was fired from the cafe after a customer accused her of stealing. The manager who didn't even ask for her side. The landlord who changed the locks while her belongings were still inside. The sister who said, "Don't call me again. You're embarrassing us." And finally the alley behind the museum. The hunger. The cold. The moment she thought sleeping might be easier than surviving. She bolted upright, gasping. The room responded to her panic. The runes carved into the walls flared bright silver, humming violently as her emotions surged. The air crackled. The candle flames bent toward her as if pulled by gravity. Elara froze, staring at her trembling hands. She had done that. Fear tightened her chest. No, no, no. The door opened. King Alaric stepped inside alone. He didn't rush. Didn't bark orders. He simply stood there, watching carefully, like someone approaching a frightened animal rather than a dangerous creature. The wards dimmed slightly at his presence, recognizing authority far older than the magic carved into stone. "You're awake," he said. Elara nodded, shrinking back instinctively. "If I hurt anyone, if I lose control, just tell me. I won't fight it." Alaric studied her for a long moment. Then calmly he removed his gloves and set them aside. "You will not be punished for fear," he said. "Not here." She blinked. "Why are you so sure?" "Because fear is not what makes monsters," he replied. "Choice does." Elara looked away, shame burning her cheeks. "Your brother didn't give me a choice." "No," Alaric agreed. "Which is why I will." He gestured, and a goblet appeared on the small table beside her bed, dark liquid swirling inside, rich and warm. Elara recoiled instantly, pressing herself against the headboard. "I won't," she said hoarsely. "I won't drink blood." Alaric didn't move the goblet closer. "You will starve." "I'd rather die," he finished gently. "That is not a choice. That is surrender." Elara's hands clenched in the sheets. The hunger clawed at her now, sharper than before, responding to the scent in the air. Her heart raced. Her vision sharpened painfully. "What is it?" she whispered. "Donated blood," Alaric said. "Voluntarily given. No harm. No command. No binding." She stared at the goblet like it might bite her back. "What happens if I don't?" she asked. Alaric met her gaze without blinking. "Then Marcus wins." The words hit harder than threat. Elara swallowed. Slowly, shaking, she reached for the goblet. Her hands trembled so badly the liquid rippled over the rim. The moment it touched her lips, heat exploded through her chest. Not violent, not cruel, but grounding. The hunger eased from a scream into a dull ache. She didn't lose herself. She didn't hear Marcus. When she finished, she was crying silently, not from pain but from relief. "I'm still me," she whispered, terrified to hope. Alaric nodded once. "You are." Training began that night. Not combat. Not violence. Control. Seraphine guided her through breathing techniques older than kingdoms, grounding rituals meant to anchor will to body. Elara learned how emotions affected her power, how fear amplified chaos, how calm shaped control. Every lesson was exhausting. Every failure came with crushing shame. But no one mocked her. No one called her weak. And Alaric was always there. He never touched her unless necessary. Never raised his voice. Never spoke down to her. When she faltered, he waited. When she succeeded, he acknowledged it with quiet approval. Never praise, never condescension. It confused her more than cruelty ever had. One evening, during a break in training, Elara overheard raised voices beyond the chamber doors. "The council is demanding her removal," a noble hissed. "She's human-born. Bound by corrupted blood. A liability." "She's not a thing to be disposed of," Alaric replied coldly. "She's a spy," another voice snapped. Marcus sees through her eyes. Silence followed. Then Alaric spoke again, soft, deadly calm. "Then let him watch." That night Marcus returned. Not through her mouth this time, but through her dreams. "You're learning," he murmured as shadows coiled around her mind. "That's good. You'll be useful longer." Elara stood her ground in the dreamscape, shaking but unbroken. "You don't own me." Marcus laughed. "Everyone owns something. Hunger. Fear. Love. Tell me, what do you think my brother owns?" She didn't answer. Marcus leaned closer, his presence suffocating. "You're special, Elara. Not because of me, but because you survived me. That makes you dangerous." She woke with a start, heart racing, sweat cooling on her skin. And for the first time since her turning, she didn't run to the guards. She went to Alaric. She found him on the high balcony overlooking the city, moonlight outlining his rigid form. When she spoke his name, he turned instantly, alert, not annoyed. "He spoke to me again," she said. "I didn't break." Alaric studied her face, searching for cracks. Finding none. "Good," he said quietly. She stepped closer, the wind tugging at her borrowed cloak. "Why do I feel like he's afraid?" Alaric's gaze lifted to the city below. "Because you are not doing what he intended." Elara frowned. "Which is?" "To become a weapon," Alaric said. Then after a pause, "or to break." She looked at him then, not as a king, not as a savior, but as someone carrying centuries of restraint, regret, and responsibility alone. "I won't be either," she said softly. "I promise." Alaric turned fully toward her. And for the first time, something ancient and guarded in his eyes shifted. Not desire, not possession, but respect. The Night Council convened beneath the obsidian citadel at the hour when even vampires feared to speak too loudly. 7 thrones formed a half-circle around a floor etched with ancient sigils, laws older than nations written in blood and consequence. The air pulsed with restrained hostility as elders, generals, and nobles gathered, their gazes repeatedly drifting toward the single empty space reserved for the human-born girl. Elara waited in a side chamber, unaware that her fate was already being debated like a political inconvenience. "She is compromised," Lord Varric snapped, his crimson eyes sharp with disdain. "Bound blood, human weakness, emotional instability. She should have been executed the moment she crossed our threshold." "And yet she wasn't," Alaric replied coolly, seated upon the high throne. "Because the law exists to protect the innocent, not erase them." "Innocent?" Another counselor scoffed. "Your brother speaks through her. Sees through her. You would endanger our entire kind for one girl?" Alaric rose slowly. The room stilled. "You mistake her for the crime committed against her," he said. "That error is how monsters are born." Murmurs rippled through the chamber, some furious, some uncertain. Seraphine watched in silence, already sensing what the others refused to acknowledge. Marcus wasn't just testing Alaric. He was provoking a fracture. As if summoned by the tension, the citadel's wards screamed. Not metaphorically. Ancient alarms flared silver-red, shaking the stone beneath their feet. The sigils on the council floor fractured as a wave of corrupted magic slammed into the fortress like a living thing. "Attack!" someone shouted. The sky above the citadel split with unnatural thunder as shadows poured from the upper city, figures moving too fast, too synchronized. Vampires, but wrong. Their eyes were empty. Their movements mechanical. Bound. Marcus' army. They breached the outer gates with horrifying efficiency, tearing through defenses that had never fallen in 8 centuries. Guards were thrown aside like dolls. Spells shattered on impact, overridden by blood sorcery that twisted familiar magic into something cruel and precise. "Elara," Alaric breathed. He moved before the council could stop him. By the time Alaric reached her chamber, it was already under assault. Bound vampires clawed at the runes, their faces blank, their bodies bleeding black where the magic burned them from the inside. Inside, Elara felt it. The pull. Marcus' command slithered through her veins like ice. "Open the door." She collapsed to her knees, clutching her head as visions flooded her mind. Alaric falling, the citadel burning, the treaty in ruins. Her body strained toward the command, muscles locking, breath tearing from her chest. "No," she gasped. "No." The door exploded inward. Alaric appeared in a blur of steel and shadow, cutting down 2 attackers before they crossed the threshold. Blood spattered the walls. The ward screamed as more pressed forward. "Elara," he shouted. "Look at me." She did. Through tears and terror, she locked eyes with him, and the command faltered. "I can feel him," she cried. "He's inside me, pulling." Alaric crossed the room, placing himself between her and the attackers without hesitation. "Then you anchor to me. To now. To your choice." The pull intensified. "Kill him," Marcus whispered. "He's the chain around your throat." Elara's hands shook violently as power surged through her, raw and untrained. She could feel how easy it would be, to release it, to end the struggle. Instead she remembered. The goblet. The quiet patience. The words, "You will not be punished for fear." She screamed, not in rage but defiance. The magic erupted outward, not as destruction, but as a shield. Light exploded from Elara's body, a wave of pure will that slammed into the bound vampires, severing Marcus' control like threads cut by fire. They collapsed instantly, unconscious but alive. The silence afterward was deafening. Alaric stared at her, stunned. Seraphine arrived seconds later, eyes wide. She broke the binding without bloodshed. Ilara collapsed forward, barely caught by Alaric before she hit the floor. For the first time in centuries, the Vampire King was the one holding someone up. The attack ended as suddenly as it began. Marcus' forces retreated, their purpose fulfilled. The message delivered. Hours later, Ilara woke in Alaric's private chambers, wrapped in blankets far too fine for someone like her. She tried to sit up and failed. "You saved them," Alaric said quietly from beside the bed. Her voice cracked. "I didn't know I could." "Neither did Marcus," he replied. The council's verdict came before dawn. Ilara was no longer considered a liability. She was considered dangerous, which made her invaluable. Alaric stood before the council one final time. "She stays," he said. "Not as a prisoner. Not as a weapon. But as my protected equal." No one argued. Because every single one of them had seen the truth. The weakest girl in the room had just saved the most powerful king alive. The world did not end after Marcus' attack. That alone felt wrong. The citadel still stood. The treaty still breathed. The sun still rose beyond the mountains like it always had. But something fundamental had shifted, like a crown quietly changing hands before anyone noticed. Ilara felt it in the way the guards bowed now. In the way nobles stopped whispering when she entered a room. In the way fear and respect followed her in equal measure. She hated it. "I don't want them to be afraid of me," she said one night as she stood beside Alaric on the high balcony, the city glowing beneath them. "They're afraid because they don't understand you," Alaric replied. "That can change." She laughed softly, bitter. "People have never understood me." He turned to her then, studying her face in the moonlight, not as a ruler judging a subject, but as someone who had watched her survive every attempt to erase her. "Then teach them," he said. Marcus did not hide anymore. He wanted the ending to be witnessed. The final confrontation came at the ruins of the old cathedral, the same place where vampire and human blood had once soaked the stones during the treaty wars. Marcus stood at the altar like a false god, his bound army kneeling around him, eyes empty, wills shattered. "You brought her," Marcus said, smiling as Alaric and Ilara approached. "I knew you would." Ilara's heart pounded, but she didn't shrink back. "You were wrong about one thing," she said, surprising even herself. "You thought I needed a master." Marcus' gaze sharpened. "And don't you?" She met his eyes. "No. I needed a choice." The battle was brutal, but short. Marcus underestimated what he couldn't control. Ilara didn't fight him with rage or hunger. She fought him with clarity. She severed the bindings on his army one by one, freeing them instead of destroying them. Each broken chain weakened him, draining the power he had stolen rather than earned. Alaric faced his brother alone. "I offered you mercy once," Alaric said, blade at Marcus' throat. Marcus laughed through bloodied lips. "And look where mercy got you." Alaric's voice didn't waver. "It got me her." That was the moment Marcus lost. When the final blow came, it was not fueled by vengeance, but by resolve. Marcus turned to ash beneath the moon, his screams swallowed by history at last. Silence followed. The freed vampires knelt, not to Alaric, but to Ilara. She panicked. "No, please don't." Alaric stepped beside her, his presence steady. "They are not bowing to power," he said. "They are bowing to mercy." The council's decision came days later. They offered her safety, wealth, titles. She refused them all. Until Alaric spoke. "The ancient law allows a human-born who saves the vampire crown to be bound to it," he said. "Not as property, but as partner." The chamber went still. Ilara looked at him, stunned. "Alaric, you don't have to," he said quietly. "This is your choice." She thought of the streets, the hunger, the girl no one protected. Then she lifted her chin. "I choose to stand," she said. "Not above anyone. Beside you." The coronation was simple. No blood. No chains. Just two hands joined before the world. A king who ruled with strength. A queen who ruled with compassion. And together they rewrote the meaning of power. Years later, when children asked who the greatest vampire queen had been, the answer was never about magic or crowns. It was always the same. She was the girl the world tried to discard, and the woman who refused to let it. Final ending. The vampire king was ready to kill her, until he realized she was destined to rule beside him.